After months and months of planning for a rematch with Joe Biden, Donald Trump this week was forced to pivot and hone in on Kamala Harris as his opponent. And with about 100 days until Election Day, the clock is ticking to come up with a brand new playbook.
Lion, Kamala Harris, Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe.
Donald Trump trying out some new attack lines.
She is a radical left lunatic, more liberal than Bernie Sanders.
Painting his new opponent as extreme and going after her policies.
Kamala's deadly destruction of America's borders is completely and totally disqualifying.
Blaming her in ads for covering for her boss.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline.
While others in Trump's party took a different route, focusing on Harris's race and gender.
100%. She was a DEI hire.
She's a woman. She's colored, therefore she's got to be good.
With Harris's campaign off to an impressive start, Trump's campaign setting expectations, releasing an internal pollster's memo, admitting Harris could see a bump in the polls. But, quote, before long, Harris's honeymoon will end. And if it does, Trump joking he may need to face a third opponent.
Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
So, Karen, Donald Trump and his campaign apparatus was singularly built to take on Joe Biden, whose central problem was how old he was. And now suddenly that entire strategy has been blown up. Do you think they can successfully pivot?
They're trying their best, bless their hearts. I mean, this line about Kamala being or Harris being too radical, we've actually heard this before, right? We actually have heard, and we've heard this for so many black women politicians, honestly, whether it was even Michelle Obama in her capacity as First Lady, that particularly black women in politics are painted automatically as radical and to the left. It just feels like he's really trying out his sort of Dr. Seuss poetry alliteration lines. That being said, I mean, you know, they're right to think about a honeymoon sort of bubble. If anything, it's actually interesting that Harris's record with law and order, given Trump's now felony conviction, her being a prosecutor, sets up this sort of kind of courtroom showdown sort of thing that I actually think will look. The only way Trump could really do this is if he looks like the unfairly persecuted victim, and that's a contradiction to his alpha male.
Except that he has basically messaged that the entire time he's been on trial. He's set himself up as the unfairly persecuted.
But how do you campaign for president from a victim platform?
Because the argument that I see them making is that this is a system that is attacking you.
It's Kamala law and order. That's the
perfect.
Wah, wah. So one thing that we have seen here, and I think it's important to underscore, we've not seen it yet, Kristen, from Trump himself on the trail, but Republican leaders have warned members of Congress and some others who've said this, not to engage in quote unquote, not to make racist and sexist attacks. That they use the phrase DEI. Trump does have a history of making racist and sexist attacks. Here are a couple, I'm not saying that against Kamala Harris now, but here are a couple from his past.
Well, I think the only card she has is the woman's card. She's got nothing else going.
I've been treated very unfairly by this judge. Now, this judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall, okay?
Is he going to be able to resist this for 100 days?
I am stunned at how the campaign seems to have been so caught off guard by this change. So you take a look at what I think this week was the most effective messaging against Kamala Harris. And it came from a Senate campaign in Pennsylvania. It went through a variety of statements she made in the 2019-2020 campaign for president that are to the left, outside the mainstream point of view on things like climate, on things like whether Americans should eat meat, what have you. The Trump campaign doesn't seem to have been as prepared. And that's why you're seeing this weird kind of spiraling of different sort of surrogates for the campaign, all choosing their own message, some of which very unhelpful. It is baffling to me that they weren't more prepared for what, to me, 1 month ago seemed like the inevitable place this was going to end up.
Yeah, I have to say I was also surprised. Raihan, what do you see here? Or jump in.
What I see here are some pretty serious vulnerabilities. There are a number of really visible, highly successful Black Democratic politicians who've staked out moderate ground. If you look at Val Demings, who was considered for Biden's VP slot way back in 2020, she's a great example. Colin Allred in Texas, running a really competitive race because he's seen as being a moderate candidate. Kamala Harris really went out of her way to distinguish herself, differentiate herself in the Democratic field as being very much on the left of the party. She talked about the idea of and the wisdom of defunding law enforcement. She is someone who celebrated the idea of Medicare for all and thought the idea of banning private health insurance coverage was a really good idea. These are things she said explicitly. When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, she explicitly said, there's a transcript of this, go to whitehouse.gov, said that folks are trying to make DEI a bad word. They're trying to do what they did to woke, making it a bad, negative term. She believes in it. She celebrates it. She champions it. And throughout her career in the Senate, she was a big champion of race-conscious public policy.
Distinct from being a DEI candidate.
Also, by the way,
you're right, but talking about DEI is very much part of her agenda.
The opposite of diversity, equity, inclusion is lack of diversity or homogeneity, unfairness, and exclusion. She was discussing it as an issue.
So why run away from it?
She's not running away from it. She talks about it all the time. She talks about it all the time. I think what's effective, what she's doing, and I think they're going to have a hard time, is that she's modulating towards the center. That is absolutely true.
Some think of modulating as lying.
Well, but even
it's a time-honored tradition.
But even
presidential campaigns on both sides of the aisle, I will just say.
The GOP
it was really tough for him as well.
The GOP convention, even in Trump's speech when he wasn't rambling, they are trying to be a party of diversity. Yes, talking about inclusion, talking about unity, an obvious play inviting Black men, especially, even Absolutely. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson and all that. They're making an obvious play to
Republicans should do it.
Amber Rose.
Important.
Yes, so Republicans
they're
do it. It's not diversity. When Democrats do it, it's diversity.
They actually are DEI and having a diverse political party. They're different things. DEI policies that are race-conscious, policies about hiring.
She was discussing them, which is different.
No, these were legislative proposals, Kara.
They're
published.
We could talk about this all week. I do, before we stop this conversation on Trump, I want to talk about something that everyone has been talking about this week, and this was the cat lady comment from J.D. Vance. Let's just play it and remind everybody about it.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made.
What a bad politician.
He responded.
Bad politician.
Is there buyer's remorse?
I have no idea. Of course there must be, but this comment is ridiculous.
I regret the whole hillbilly elegy liberal fan fest that originally pushed J.D. Vance into the, we all repent, we're sorry.
J.D. Vance had an opportunity to be someone who is an advocate for policies that are going to be good for families. And there are things that he has done or tried to do in the Senate that went that direction. Before he was getting vetted for VP, he had been working on a bill with a Democratic senator on reducing the costs you have to pay to actually give birth in the United States. These were good things, and they are now being totally drowned out by these comments that, for me, you know that phrase, you don't remember what somebody said, but you remember how you made them feel. I remember how I felt the first time I heard J.D. Vance say that in 2021, because I had been going through struggles to start my family at the time. And now he's tried to walk it back and say, well, that's not really what I meant. I wasn't talking about people who can't have children, et cetera. But when you're explaining, you're losing. And that was just an unbelievable unforced error. And I think the apology he's attempted so far is one of those, I'm sorry you were offended type things, which isn't enough.
Yeah, he said, I've got nothing against cats. I've got nothing against dogs. That was part of his apology today.
Wow. Sure.